rivals the sea of blue when the Royals won the World Series, and I think it was just cold and it was miserable and beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah. But it didn't matter because you had the Lombardi Trophy.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
All right. So we're at 2. Let's see here, numbers wise. I think maybe give it a few more minutes for folks to jump in. David, are you able to see my screen okay?
Yes, I can see just completely fine.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Front and center.
Awesome. Good deal. Let's see here.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It only took me 3 tries to join.
Well, congratulations. You got it and you found it. Happy to have you.
Well, I tried to join a little bit before 1. For whatever reason in my brain, it was at 1. And it's actually 2 here. So.
Different time.
Yeah. So I joined it and I went, oh, I'm not going to sit here for an hour. And so then, yeah, finally made it. We have more coming, Kim?
Yeah, I think I should have 1 more, maybe 2, 1 for sure.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and mute.
Alan Johnson, how are you? It's good to see you, brother.
I'm doing well, staying busier than I want to be. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
At least now that we're wrapping up the school year.
Yes, sir. Now a whole new set of problems.
Last couple months have been interesting to say the least.
Yes, sir. Learning new things every day.
I will say that everything that was on my to-do list in early March is still on my to-do list now.
Right, right. Plus, it's probably a little longer because we're getting,
yeah.
Hey, that worked well. Let's do this next year.
We're set for virtual snow days, are we not?
We are. We are. We shouldn't have a canceled day of school at all now.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started now. So thank you, everybody. This is the second stop in our Hayes virtual roadshow. We were in the Southwest yesterday, and so today we're in the Midwest, and I'm actually coming to you remote out of the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. So my name is Blake Sobel. I'm a senior national account manager here with Hayes. I've been with the company for over 5 years. And prior to that, I was a technology director for a school district here in Michigan. Actually, if you're watching the news right now, they're getting hammered with all sorts of flooding due to some dams that broke up north of town. So I was in Midland. And so those guys out there are going through some really tough times. As if a global pandemic wasn't enough, they've got houses being washed away. It's pretty awful right now. So I'm happy to be here talking with you guys today about the complete life cycle of your district assets and how current events are shaping what we're doing moving forward and having to make quick decisions and changes to the way that you typically operate. Joining me today from Hayes, who's going to be monitoring our chat, is going to be Skylar Romo. Skylar, if you want to take a second, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Skylar Romo. I cover the states of Missouri and some of the larger districts within Indiana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. I see a few familiar faces that I've spoken to in the past, and then some new ones. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think there's gonna be a lot of value coming out of it.
Thanks, Skylar. Appreciate that. And Skylar, like I said, Skylar will be monitoring the chat session. So if you have questions, you'd like to even provide some input and things that you guys are doing that would benefit the group, we're all here to learn from each other. So kind of want to start here by just providing a little bit of background on Hayes. We are based out of Austin, Texas, and we will have been in business now for almost 30 years as of next month. We were founded by Gene Hayes, who was a former school district administrator. He was a principal, assistant principal, and partnered up with his son to develop software to help schools be more fiscally responsible in keeping track of assets. And that whole movement really started around textbooks and instructional materials, because back in those days, we may have had a single computer lab within a school building, and maybe that was even just reserved to the secondary schools. But things have changed dramatically. And so we continue to meet the needs of school districts across the country, helping them to better manage their inventory records on both the instructional material as well as the asset side of the house. So our platform is called TipWeb. We have TipWeb IM and TipWeb IT, both designed for managing those different types of resources. They are different types and so required to be managed in different ways. And the K-12 space is very unique and has a lot of unique challenges to overcome. And so our products have really been developed with functionality that speaks to how school districts are structured and what you guys really need to be effective in this part of your day-to-day activities. We're going to be talking about challenges, old and new today, and how our solutions are solving those challenges. There's always issues around manual processes, time-consuming processes, things that are prone to error. Districts are needing to be able to maximize resources. It's really about answering those questions about what you have, where it is, when it needs to be replaced or refreshed, who it's assigned to. And that's become a huge topic as of late with districts that are having to send devices home to help support remote learning. We talked to a lot of districts where 3 months ago, and we asked that question, they would answer that, no, we're not a one-to-one district. We don't ever plan to do that. We've got carts in the buildings. Well, that has changed, and it has changed dramatically. And so we're going to be excited today to talk a little bit more about how one district is handling that here in the Midwest, and also share some ideas about what we're hearing from other districts as well. So on that note, I would like to go ahead and introduce our guest today. David Liss is the Executive Director of Technology for Nixa School District. So David, if you'd like to take a minute and introduce yourself, I'd appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you, Blake. My name is David Liss. I've been with Nixa Schools. I'm just starting my 14th year. Coming into today, I had to count up like how many years I've been in the technology field since 1985. So this is my 35th year in the technology field, and 29 of that has been in education. The last 14 in K-12, but all the previous have been in higher education. So I've kind of seen both of those areas and both of those spaces. I not only hold but also promote the CETL certification, the Certified Education Technology Leaders certification of COSIN. I was in the Marine Corps for 7 years, which is where I got my start in technology. And I had them put this in there. I really think that I want you to know that as we talk today, that I kind of have a humorous outlook on things sometimes, but I did create a textbook while I was at Drury, and it was fun. It was because I couldn't find what I really wanted. I made my own. And so while I like to think of it as a bestseller, it really wasn't, but that was some time ago. But anyway, I'm interested to get us started and talk a little bit more about how Hayes Software has helped us here in Nixa.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. David, if you wouldn't mind taking a minute, just kind of giving us some background on Nixa, that'd be helpful as well.
You bet. Our district does cover 55 square miles. I'm sorry if I feel like I'm just reading the slides, but We're just under 6,500 students. We grow at a rate of about 100 to 150 students a year. We still are in a growth pattern. We have just a little over 700 staff. And since going one-to-one, our landscape has changed quite a bit. We still have some labs and so forth, as well as, so not only our staff computers, but we are one-to-one, kindergarten through 12th, and we do have devices in our pre-K as well. So that's over 7,500 devices that we support. And that does not include peripherals. So I'm just talking about computers when computers are Chromebooks. So when we talk about our software that we do inventory with, we inventory all of our peripherals. I think that you could probably almost triple that number as far as devices that we are inventorying. And just to give you an idea of our demographics, we have 12 buildings that are academic buildings that range from 30 to 44% free and reduced. We're a 32% district across the board. And it's very interesting on this next piece of information that our surveys had told us that we were 85 to 90% connected with home access. Home access means a lot of things when people are responding to a survey, that they have access to the internet, but they may just think that they have it with a phone or something. And through this whole pandemic and our response to remote learning, we probably had, in all reality, as high as 95%, which was kind of surprising to us. And quite honestly, this is a surprising number to me even, but with 6,450 students, between working with local service providers and providing hotspots, out of those 6,450, we got everyone connected except for 32 of our students, which is a pretty miraculous work on the part of a lot of people in the district. And then we do have 15 total buildings that are connected with a 10 gig backbone. And we are in the seat of Christian County. We're the largest employer in Christian County.
That's impressive, David. For those families that you were not able to get connected, were there other accommodations that were being made? Were there other instructional materials being sent home for learning for those students?
We did have a paper plan, but our community, we have a very, very supportive community. And so not only did we provide that, and I will say that for those 32, they were just unable to be connected.
Okay.
We live in a kind of a rural, we have rural areas in our school district that, you know, cell wasn't really available, hotspots didn't work and so forth. So we encourage them. We do have external wireless to some of our buildings. So we not only have those hotspots, we also had a very good response from our church community of providing wireless access in many of the church parking lots and so forth around town. So we were able to provide at least access, even though it wasn't home access. So when I say those 32, I mean everything except for home access.
Okay, that's great. So what we're going to be talking about today really starts off with just the full life cycle of your district assets. It goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about just having reliable information about what you have, where it is, who it's assigned to, making sure that those things are able to come back, and also ensuring that that data stays clean and accurate. You know, back when it was just a single computer lab in a school building, didn't have a high risk of those computers moving around. And times have changed dramatically, and now there's just a ton of mobile technology throughout school districts that is highly walkable and mobile, and districts sometimes refer to those as high pilferage assets. And without having that, those systems in place to keep track of where those are, sometimes it's hard to even know that things are missing. And that's critical when it comes to being, you know, fiscally responsible, figuring out what you're budgeting for in the future to forecast for refreshes, things of that nature. And then also, how are you supporting those devices? And that landscape is changing as well, as a lot of this stuff is now going home. So keeping up with that movement, updating those records when things do move from one room to another or in one building to another, those are all things that Hayes is able to help with. So David, talk to us a little bit about, what would this look like for you guys if you were trying to do this without software? Can you imagine what this current scenario would look like and what burden that would put on your team?
Well, Blake, I can actually respond to that in a very realistic way, because from the time of implementation, we have all of our technology assets that are in the system. The one thing that is not in our system, and we kind of have a goal to get in the system, is on all of our non-technology assets, and that would be everything from furniture, those types of things that we don't typically track currently. When I say don't track, we don't track with a system currently. And before getting the software, we actually had all of those things tracked by our business office through Google Sheets. And we literally have individual Google Sheets that are assigned to each teacher and each staff member that has their desk, their chair, what different things they have in there. And so when I think about that, I actually have a model to look at and go, oh my gosh, can you believe that we still do this here? And when we look at our technology assets and we think of the number of assets that we have out there, and looking at the organization and the ability to report and the ability to track and follow and exchange from building to building, from room to room, those types of things, I do look at those two fairly regularly, and really want to get those non-technology assets into the system as soon as possible so that we can track them easily. Okay,
great. And are you tagging any of those non-technology related assets?
And we're currently not. So I am also, lucky me, I am in charge of our surplus as well. And so everything that is technology related is all tagged. It's all inventoried in the system, et cetera. And so it's very easy and nimble to be able to work with. All of the other assets, I mean, honestly, I don't know whether I'm surplusing stuff that people just didn't want at home and brought it in and said, hey, get rid of this for me. Or, and likewise, I don't know if people aren't taking things home that are no longer needed or wanted, or maybe they are, and we just don't even know that those things are leaving our district. And so the ability to be able to track by some type of code or something and know what's here and know what's gone and know if something's missing, we see that we don't have that on our non-technology side, and our technology side is very manageable.
Sure. You talk a lot about things moving around, whether they're technology or non-technology related. Can you talk to us a little bit about your process for keeping track of that movement within the software?
Oh, absolutely. I will say that what we've gone through, is as we were all, and Alan and I specifically, were kind of just bantering around about the last couple months. It's become very, very evident in the last couple months. When teachers started working from home and we started educating kids from home, well, the laptops are one thing. They go home with them all the time. So that's something that's very normal. But then when teachers were allowed to come and grab some things for their classroom to do remote learning, we started having a lot of things walk out the door. And I can't imagine, keeping track of those and not getting them returned. I had a 55-inch TV that went home with somebody. We just happened to find out about that. We would have found out because it's tracked. And there was a reason that they did that, and the way that they were modeling some instruction and so forth. But those and hover cams and everything else, when they're mobile assets or can be mobile assets, it's very, very important to the financial, responsibility of taking care of those assets, that where they are. And so we have a process by which there are certain assets that a staff member or a teacher have that are considered personal assets that go with them if they're moving from. I think all of us in education know, and I kind of just give, this is my humor that is supposed to come out, so understand, take this humorously. but it doesn't seem like a principal can leave teachers in the same classroom very long. You know, I wonder all this time why we're moving teachers within a school to different classrooms. Can they not just stay in the same classroom? But that happens so often. And those of us that are technology directors, that's where we pull our hair out. But how do I know when it goes from this room to that room and so forth? And so this really helps us in that mobility, that if things are going across building or inner building, if they're moving, we're keeping track of that. And that we're probably going to get into this in a little bit, but that either comes from our notating that as we do some room inventories, or as we're going to be doing self inventories that people will be inventorying their own assets. Did that answer your question, Blake?
Yeah, no, that's great. And then, you know, as a district that had already been into the one-to-one space before this happened, seems like the majority of the changes that you're seeing are on the staff side, where you've got things leaving the buildings now that hadn't previously been leaving the buildings. So it's really expanding the scope of that challenge and keeping track of what is assigned to what individual to make sure you're getting that back.
Well, Blake, and you mentioned that, but I can even speak to the student part of that as well, because you're exactly right. We started this whole process with just staff and faculty. And we had actually been using, I don't know if anybody else can relate, but with the number of assets that we had out there and how it ties to student records and that sort of thing, we were using Destiny for that. So we were actually using a library management. We did not want to pay for resource manager. So kind of in a bizarre twist, we just purchased another school for our Destiny system, and we used that school as our Chromebook repository. And that way we could check out to students. And we were having to do that with our previous system because it didn't have the ability to import. I won't say the ability, but there were just a lot of complications of including students in that same system. And by coming over to TipWeb, we were able to then import all of our students. We're able to import all of our student devices, and now we just check them out in TipWeb, and we were able to completely save, you know, we just let that other school go. We didn't renew it in Destiny, and Destiny doesn't want you to do that anyway, because it's really expected to be for library resources unless you do the resource manager. And I'm going to tell you, just adding resource manager to Destiny was more than we paid for the product.
Wow. Okay. That's some great feedback. Appreciate that. Let's check in with Skylar real quick. Skylar, do you have any, what are things looking like on the chat right now?
No questions coming in yet, so we can keep rolling unless there's anything from the audience that we want to get answered.
Okay. Are there any? I'll open that up for just a second. Are there any questions about anything at this point?
I do see a private one from Jeff Martin, and I can get back with you privately, Jeff, on this. But he did ask just if we're willing to share the survey instrument that we used for internet coverage. And I would just say, yeah, we're totally willing to share that out. It really was nothing more than a Google form, which I know automatically draws criticism to say that, you know, only those who have access are going to fill that out, which is exactly what we knew was a potential. And that's why I probably should have explained that, but that's why when we had our percentage, we wondered how accurate that was. And this really kind of brought to light that it was pretty accurate.
That's great. All right. So we've talked about the idea of devices going home with individuals, David, and how you're using TipWeb IT to do that. Having my own firsthand experience managing one-to-one initiatives, I understand there are a lot of logistical challenges that come with these types of programs. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more. I'm sure the audience would like to hear a little bit more about what your process was in order to distribute devices to staff and students. You know, TipWeb IT has the ability to interface with your student information system and HR data, so those demographics are there. There are electronic distribution receipts that can be signed electronically and then emailed to the individuals that are signing, or parents or staff members. Talk to us a little bit about how you're using the software to manage that.
You bet. We really, on all of our deployments, and it really works this way, whether it's faculty or staff or whether it's student, the process looks a little different, but we literally scan out. It's a very quick process. We open up our system, and as the students come in, we simply will check out a device to them. We pull them up. We scan the serial number. We bring up the device. We bind the device to the student, and they're off and running. We don't have a lot of signatures that pass, so we haven't done. I know it has the capability of doing what you're talking about, because we do that all through the student handbooks and so forth. But it's a very seamless process, very easy, and we just literally have lines. What complicates that process, that what I just mentioned would be like an initial deployment, but what we've been doing is, so we're in the process right now of life cycling our assets, and so our Chromebooks for our students become the largest life cycle of that. And so when we got our new student Chromebooks in, we literally just set up shop in one of our computer labs and brought students down by class. We just organized it by teacher and by class, and they came in, they went to one station, we checked their Chromebook in, we checked it over for damage so that we can, because we're probably going to get to this, but the idea is we not only have TIP Web IT, but we also have help desk as well. And so the way that we've been able to marry those two together is that we also check the Chromebook over for damage, and if it has damage, then we're able to immediately create a work ticket for it, and it logs that so that we can know that it needs work as well. So that's just another component. But and then they just walk to the next station, and we check out a new Chromebook to them, and they're back. And we did 2,000 Chromebooks in our high school in the matter of, I want to say, 4 or 5 hours. And that was even, that was just a very methodical process.
Yeah, that's impressive. I've talked to a lot of districts where they don't have those processes in place, and it takes a lot longer than that. So the fact that you're able to get that done in that short amount of time is really.
Hey Blake, and let me also, I'm sorry, because I think about it, we have multiple processes, and it just kind of came to mind, so I'll throw this one out too. But in a lot of our elementaries, in our junior high and high school, it can even affect, your 5, 6, depending on how you do your intermediate with multiple teachers, if, you're doing passing periods and things like that. But in our K4s, and it really works out this way in our 5, 6 buildings as well. But when you have a centralized teacher or centralized classes, we also have, to save kids being in the hallway and that sort of thing, is we'll have what used to be ITFs, which is our instructional technology facilitators. They're now considered instructional coaches, but they simply, in a room, will check out devices. We'll print out a student list with student number that's barcoded, and then we match that up with the device, and we pre-check out all of the Chromebooks, and then we categorize them by class. And then we just literally take that tub of Chromebooks to the classroom, and then the teacher disseminates them. And so the kids never leave the classroom, the teachers never leave the classroom, and they get disseminated that way. And so that's another way that we do that. And then on our carded Chromebooks, it's real easy. We'll probably get into this too, but just to let you know that we do have a differentiation. And prior to your software, it was very difficult to do this, but we have a differentiation now within our school district on all of our technology assets as to whether or not the asset gets checked out to a person or a room. And so those assets that are affixed to a room, like a projector, a smart board, maybe it's a television, something like that, those are actually inventoried to a room versus a person, so that we don't have this delineation. When a teacher does move a classroom, then we know that it's only personal assets going with them. It's not the fixed assets of the room.
And have you seen a change in behaviors since you started doing it that way, where teachers aren't taking some of those other pieces that are supposed to be assigned to the room? It seems to be a systemic problem just across K-12 in general, that teachers like to take what they've got because they don't want to lose that resource when they move to a new location. It's all about providing for their students. And so have you seen any changes with that?
You know, I see where you're going with that. I will say we have a very concerted effort in our district for district equity. And so most of those things that are considered personal devices, most of our teachers have. We have a large amount of control with that as well. And again, it does come back to the software, but because we know what's supposed to be in that room, then we say, okay, you're moving rooms. When we go into that room, and it's very easy to recognize when something's missing, and then we go to the teacher and we are able to get that back. Likewise, if a teacher is leaving the district, we're able to pull off that's when I said that we were having kind of a pre-conversation. I said all the guys are out at their buildings today doing teacher turn-ins. Well, we have approximately 50 teachers leaving the district right now. And so we just run a report, and we have pre-printed inventory sheets for all of our techs, and they sit in the room, and we've already provided that to the teacher, and they know that you're expected to come in at your appointed time, and these are the technology items that you're turning in. Likewise, when teachers are either moving rooms or if they are transferring within the district, they know what they're allowed to take with them and what they're not allowed to take with them. They know that it's inventoried. They know we're going to catch it. So we really don't have a problem because they know, in essence, we'll come after them if they take something they're not supposed to.
Sure. And I imagine some of those assets have other accessories associated with them, power adapters, charging cables,
Yes.
remotes, things of that nature. How do you keep track of those pieces?
Yeah, we consider those to be part of the asset. You know, we'll inventory a monitor, we'll inventory a dock, but the power adapters for those, if they require power adapters, we expect that those are with them. You know, a lot of technology items that we don't talk about or that we may not be obvious would be like telephones. You know, we have IP-based phones. Well, while we don't really care that they move internally to the building, we don't want them going cross-building, only because we try to keep all of our extensions contiguous per building. And so, you know, it's those types of things that if it is something that goes with another device, then we don't typically inventory tag it. If it's something that is its own device, then we inventory tag it, like document cameras and those sorts of things.
Sure. Yeah, I've only spoken with a handful of districts that have gone to that length of actually putting a barcode label on a power adapter because the challenge that they were running into was so great that they needed that level of accountability. But TipWeb IT also has a really neat feature that allows you to associate default accessories to the asset. So if you have a Chromebook, it is automatically going to go out with the same power adapter and potentially a case with it. You can assign those in the software. So as part of that checkout process, they're automatically assigned to the user. They can be displayed on that distribution receipt. And then through the collection process, if a student or a staff member doesn't turn one of those items in, it asks you to verify that they have returned those items. So you can quickly basically turn that off and then run obligation reports later on that show you what was still missing. Then you've got a way to follow up with the folks that still didn't turn those pieces in. So without having the burden of tagging those items.
Learn something on my own webinar. That's fantastic.
There's a lot
Hey,
of
Blake,
stuff
we've got a couple questions down here in the chat. The first one, I'll let you take this. This one's from Jeff Martin. Dave, how long has Nixa been using the software with Hayes?
Gosh, Skylar, you probably are better to answer that than I am. Has it been 2 years now?
It's a little over a year. So probably coming up on a year and a half now at this point.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, honestly, we've become so comfortable with it that it's just the way we do business. And I would have thought that we've been using it longer.
Well, I appreciate that. The other question we've got down here, Blake, I'll let you you field this one. This one's from Alan Johnston. Can devices be scanned using a reader app on a phone once logged into the software?
So technically speaking, yes, it can. In the interest of efficiency, what most districts are doing and what we advise is some sort of Bluetooth connected scanner that would communicate with the device and the software. But yes, you can scan it with the phone. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate the question. All right. So, David, you had started talking a little bit about Get Help, and so for those that are on the call today that may not be aware, we do have that fully integrated help desk application that works hand in hand with TipWeb IT. So both TipWeb IT and Get Help share the same database, which allows us to take advantage of some really neat integrations, streamlining processes, minimizing the amount of manual information that has to be keyed in by an end user, because we're able to pull all of that detail from TipWeb IT when someone is submitting a ticket. And so, David, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you guys are leveraging Get Help, and maybe even going in a little bit into how you've leveraged it differently given what's going on right now with support, with regards to support?
You bet. So I've been in, as I think back to my little bio there, I've been in this business a long time, and especially in my collegiate days, dealt with some pretty decent call centers and help desks and stuff like that. And I've used some very, very expensive help desk software. And so I always knew that there was the capability of tying together your inventory and your help desk. So, because that's what we used to do. And it was very easy to, when someone's filling out a help desk request, that they already see what's checked out to them. They choose what it is that they have. And so I was finding it very, very difficult in the K-12 space with the budgets that we work with to find software that would function in that way. And so we had been through, I just want to say 6 to 8 years and about 3 different products prior to you all to try to make that happen, and on promises that that would happen. And the one that we were using previously assured us that it was something they were working on. And even though both products were with them and that they were working independently, that they were working very hard on getting them to work together. And kind of towards the end, I was tired of waiting when I saw your product and I actually saw it demoed. And Skylar, I mean, I raked him over the coals on this because I was like, it's gotta work. You can't just, you can't just puff me up with smoke in a sales presentation. And you've got to stand behind it. And Skylar, you remember those days, right?
I do.
And so we were searching for that one solution that, even though it's 2, it becomes 1. And so we have that. And because it does operate out of the same database, we're able to do things independently in each system, yet they work collaboratively with each other when we need them to. And so that I really commend you guys on doing a great job. And believe me, I'm not just trying to sell your software, but when I find something that works, I told Skylar this a long time ago, I said, when I find something that works, I'm going to be your biggest champion. And that's really what has been the big selling point for us. It's been an efficiency point. And then Blake, you mentioned, so moving into this space in the last few months, well, we have not opened it up to students. We have contemplated it quite a bit. We have been a district that has allowed students to keep their Chromebooks over the summer. We got them back last year for a specific reason, because it was the end of our ADP and we wanted to make sure they were all up to snuff. But we know we have the ability to have students be able to put in their own technical requests. And while we have not implemented that, and we have some other processes that do that, it allows us the flexibility to do that if we want. But even though we don't allow our students to, the one thing that I really do like about it is that we're not constrained by the number of licenses. And that was always something with previous software, is like, oh, well, if you want teachers to put these things in and administer anything, and then we have media aids that help with our help desks and so we have a lot of different moving parts at the building that help us in our support efforts. And it really gives us flexibility to be able to say, yes, I want this to be a technician. I want them to have the ability to do these things. And I can build my processes around my software, or I should say it the other way around. I can allow my software to adapt to my processes instead of building my processes around what my software gives me the ability to do, and or what my budget affords me to do, because I can only afford so many technicians or so many assets or so many people that can put in tickets and so forth. So it really has given us the flexibility to say what process works, and then go, okay, now let's have our software do what our process needs it to do. And so I could speak more specifically as to what our process is if you wanted to know that, but I'll just say that you do what works for you, and I can't imagine the software not being able to adapt to that process.
Sure. Yeah, it allows you to scale very quickly and not have to worry about the constraints of licensing. It's just another one of those really unique things that we've done that is beneficial for school districts and how they operate and have to be able to adapt to changes like that. Are staff members logging into the user portal and submitting tickets? And,
yes.
Okay. Great.
Absolutely. And what's really cool about that is that through group policy and so forth, we have pushed out every user on our system, save the students, but every user on our system has a shortcut on their desktop to get help, and then they access it. It's Google SSO, which you guys have worked with us quite extensively on, but it's Google SSO, which really helps from a security standpoint. I know a lot of us as directors and otherwise, I'm also the ISO for our district. And so security is a very, very big thing to me. And if I have one less person that's writing down one less password on one less sticky note, that's a good thing for me. And so with Google SSO, that helps with security. And then they just have access to the portal. They get in, they're able, because they are already logged in under their account, they see their assets, and they're either able to put in a work request on an asset they have, or we have other in there, and they can add work requests on assets that are not assigned to them. And I don't mean, it may even be a non-inventoriable asset, and or just some help that they need, and they have the ability to do that as well.
Yeah, that's great. You know, the Google SSO piece also it makes it so much simpler for the end users. I was on the Southwest Roadshow yesterday, and they were talking about how the majority of tickets that they're getting have to do with password related information. And so by limiting that scope, that simplifies it and frees staff up to work on other pressing issues. Just to speak again to some of the integration with TipWeb IT and why that's so beneficial, we're able to take some of the information, obviously, that's coming over related to the asset records. And as a ticket is opened up for an asset, you now have the ability to have TipWeb IT automatically flip that asset into a status of in repair. And then as that ticket is resolved, it can go back into an available or in use status. And so taking away that manual process of having to go update it someplace else. The other thing that I wanted to speak to was the fact that Get Help has been built from the ground up as a very customizable solution. And so you've got the ability to build the problem types and sub-problem types that make sense to your team and what you want to track, as well as giving you the ability to make some of those available through the portal, but others can just be available for your technology team. And so you want to keep that simple for the end user, so they're not having to go through a bunch of different options to figure out, gosh, what kind of a problem am I really having? But you want the tracking capability. And so it allows you to work within both of those spaces. Advanced ticket routing, custom fields. And so just a lot of flexibility to build that out in a way that makes sense to the way your team operates. Skylar, are we getting some more activity on the chat there?
Nothing yet. I just asked a question to everyone in the chat. Feel free to respond there or take yourself off mute and answer it. Just kind of curious to hear what some of the main challenges your district is currently facing with everything going on.
Perfect. Thanks, Skylar. Real quick, before we shift to a different topic here, David, what is your current process for families to report issues, whether they're having issues with the device or maybe it's a learning management platform? How are you guys handling those requests, and what role does Get Help play in that?
Yeah, we're modeling it much after what happens when we are in school. So, and I make that statement because you might think, oh, well, I do it one way when we're seated and I do it another way when we're remote. And so what we've chosen to do, and I have a slight augmentation to this in the summertime in July and August when people don't have a normal teacher and they have things at home. But what we've decided to do, we have media aids in each building, and those media aids, they do some technical instruction. They're a specials teacher, and then they also take care of some of the help desk stuff. They don't actually work on the machines, but they'll help if it needs power washed or if there's just something, they'll take a Chromebook in and give out a loaner or something like that. So we do have that resource in all of our buildings, and in our high school we actually have a help desk that is also student run. But the normal course of operation is that a student just tells their teacher that they're having a problem with their Chromebook. Then the teacher contacts the media aid. If it is seated, then the teacher will usually allow the student to go down to the media aid to drop off the Chromebook and get a loaner, where in our remote, our media aid contacts that parent and sees if it's something they can resolve over the phone. If it's not, then they simply ask them to bring it by the tech center. We literally have a physical drop box that's very well padded, and they drop that Chromebook off. We repair it, and then we give them a call to come pick it up. Now, in the process, the way that the software takes care of it is that there's an email generated from the teacher to the media aid, and then the media aid acts as the technician that puts in the work order. So once that work order hits, it's automatically, as you were saying, skill routed to the technician for that building. The technician is already aware that something is coming in. Then they watch the drop box, and as they get the machine out of the drop box, they make a note on the ticket, which then notifies the media aid that it's being worked on in case they get questions. So the automatic notification to notes really helps everybody stay informed on what's going on. So regardless of who the parent's contacting, they have information to be able to provide. And then once we've called the parent to come pick up, we also make a note in there, and the media aid again is notified so that they know that the Chromebook's done and that the parent's been notified to come pick it up. And so again, it just keeps notifications going. With the skill routing, we have a container, I'll call it that, and that's been able to be modified. So when you talk about scalable and customizable, we were able to switch something on the back end very quickly, because there for a while we were doing half remote, half not remote on my team. And so we didn't want, our goal is to get Chromebooks back fixed and back in the hands of the students within 24 hours. And because we do self-maintainer. Well, what it was is then those Chromebooks would sit potentially for 2 days until that person was back in the building. But we made a container in there so that those skill routed that weren't done could be put in an open container. So the ones that were here that day, if they were able to get their own Chromebooks done, then they were able to grab some of the other work orders and get them taken care of. Honestly, that kind of stuff just wouldn't be possible without the flexibility of a software to make those communication channels possible. Did
Right.
I go off topic? I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate all of the information. I'm sure the group appreciates the insight into how you guys are doing things. That's very helpful.
Down in the chat, Blake, it looks like Michael from Lawrence Township is saying their biggest challenge right now is everything's in spreadsheets and they have limited to no reporting.
Yeah.
So Dave, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about kind of the reporting piece and what that looks like for you now.
Yeah, the reporting piece is really nice. As we get into reporting, it's nice to be able to go in, and I will say and Blake, you can speak to this, because there may be, as I'm still learning the system too, there's not a lot of canned reports, and I think that maybe more is coming, but there's the flexibility in the program that almost everything is exportable. And so what that helps with is if I'm really wanting to dig down into some numbers, like I said, I've had some pretty high dollar softwares where it integrates with Crystal reports. I can build reports and all. And I got to be honest, I didn't do a lot of report writing because Crystal Reports was so hard to do. But I can sure export a CSV and do a quick, reporting to see where some things are at. It's got, so it's good reporting for those things that we normally need to know, how many things are open, how many things are closed, good dashboard and that sort of thing. But as far as being able to get the detailed reports that I want, a lot of it is in CSV export, and then I can manipulate the data to get what I need. But I'm sorry to turn that back, but Blake, I haven't done much more reporting than that. What within the software, where are you guys taking the reporting?
Yeah, so there's reporting capabilities in both TipWeb IT and Get Help. And as you would describe, being able to export that information out. TipWeb IT is a little bit more sophisticated in terms of the filtering that you can do to limit your result set. But you do have the ability to create custom reports, save those reports, even schedule those reports so that they're automatically executed on a scheduled basis, and that a link to that report is sent to an individual based on how you set that up. On the Get Help side of things, you can export all of that data. And then we also have an analytics component where we continue to add canned reports to that listing. So being able to see number of tickets resolved by technician or tickets opened by product type, just to name a couple of examples. What's really powerful about that analytics piece is the fact that you can get that result set and then quickly change the format and how you want to visually see that representation. Do you want it in a pie graph? Do you want it in a bar chart? Do you want to quickly filter? Maybe I don't want to look at all technicians. Maybe there's only a subset of technicians that I want to include. And so there are those capabilities, and we're continuing to add to that and looking for feedback around what types of reports would be helpful as a canned report that would help you to operate more efficiently. And as we see those things come in, that gets evaluated on our backlog and rated with all other features and functionality in order to provide you what you need to operate.
Yeah, and I would just say I'm still learning this too, and so Skylar, put that one on your checklist. I need to get with you on reporting.
Absolutely.
Good question, Michael.
All right. So kind of shifting gears a little bit here, how to operate when there is no plan, how to plan when there is no plan. This whole situation has caused us to start thinking differently about things and just continue to be the problem solvers that we all are. That's what being in technology is. It's providing solutions. And so, David, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what your plans are for device collection? I know you said that you've got students that are keeping devices through the summer, but maybe it's students that are graduating or staff members that are leaving, and talking a little bit more about that process, especially given the current pandemic situation, the safety of staff and students, and what that might look like for you guys.
Yeah, and I will say here in Nixa and kind of Christian County, we haven't been hit as hard as some, so we've had a little bit more flexibility in being able to have some drop-offs and things like that, and kids picking up personal items, and we've done it with a lot of caution and so forth. But we've already had all of our seniors turn in all of their Chromebooks, and so again, through inventory, we know which ones have and haven't turned in their stuff, and we just have pretty much a car line, and we're able to check them in very, very quickly and so forth. And so all students, other than students leaving the district, and seniors are keeping their Chromebooks over the summer. And that's because we're doing an extensive seated summer school in June, and then we're doing a virtual summer school in July. I know it seems backwards. There's process and reason for it, but so we're just allowing them to keep their Chromebooks over the summer. It's not like we haven't done that before, and because that we experimented with doing that anyway. So that's that's the only turn in, is the senior turn in. I did mention that we're doing some Lifecycle, and so 2,000 Chromebooks from grades 5 through 8 will be Lifecycled at the beginning of August. So that's already going to be one of those where kids are going to be bringing them back, and they're going to be turning one in and getting a different one. And we just have a lot of things that are going to be challenges. And what I mean by that is that we used to have everybody taking them home second grade and up, and then we've made some changes, and to where we are right now is we cart devices up through fourth grade, and fifth through 12th take them home. So knowing that something was coming before spring break, we just emptied those carts third and fourth grade and told everybody to take one home. So we've got some things when we think of our inventory system that fifth through 12th, we know everybody who's got them. We then later said, instead of doing all the paper packets and everything, we're going to give out Chromebooks to K through 2 students if they need them at home. And so those all got checked out on a one-to-one basis and did a car line, et cetera, et cetera. But so all of those from K through 2 and then 5 through 8 or 5 through 12 are all checked out to students. But that third and fourth grade, they're still checked out to the carts because we just sent them home before spring break. That was very reactionary on our part. The thing is we know which ones are out, inventoriable, and we know who's in the class, and we know that the cart was in that classroom. So, but we don't know which student has, I should say we do know which student has which device because the teachers kept track of that. So we have a lot of different things going on, and pivoting around that has been challenging. But I got to be honest, stolen Chromebooks, lost Chromebooks, Chromebooks not turned in, Chromebooks turned in all of those situations, I explained all that really to say one thing simply, we're not worried about it.
Okay, that's great. It seems like you've got the processes there in good shape, and you're avoiding one of the big talking points and challenges right now by letting those kids keep those devices through the summer. And that has to do with just how are you going to sanitize these things when they come back and ensure the safety of the staff and students. If I could speak on that just real quick, we have partnered with a third party that is a leader in the industry for sanitization of hospitals and hotels across the country. And so they are uniquely equipped to handle pandemic disinfecting devices, classroom. They are ISSA and ClearCheck certified. They use EPA approved cleaning materials so that they're safe on the environment, safe on staff and students. And so as districts are thinking about having this mass collection of bringing all these devices back, David, even with the folks that in the third and the fourth grade where they have those carded devices, could be something that we could talk to you guys about in terms of helping with that collection process, because some staff just aren't comfortable exposing themselves to the potential risk of getting a device in with the virus on it. And so we can actually assist with the collection process, and then also through our partner handle the sanitization, ensuring those devices are clean and ready to go back out or to go back into the carts when you're ready to do so.
Sounds great.
Skylar, real quick, did you have another question on the chat?
Nothing over here yet.
Okay, perfect. Thought I saw an alert in my upper right-hand corner. A lot of what we talked about today has to do with maintaining accurate data. Without accurate data, everything that you do on a day-to-day basis just becomes that much more challenging. And so really, to kind of summarize some things up here, Hayes has put together solutions that help to automate processes that historically have been very manual in nature, whether it's keeping up with transfers and disposals, as things are moving from one room to another, the whole checkout and collection process. And another big piece of this are inventory audits. And so basically that act of walking every building and every room and verifying that things are still there or anything that may have shifted or gone missing. David, is that something that that you want to speak to for just a second, kind of how you guys are handling that verification process?
You bet. And I'm cognizant of time here. I will say that, and I'm seeing a grin on Skylar's face because I know that was another sticking point. I've been through a lot of softwares, and I told him, I said, don't even talk to me about your software unless it can do audits. And that was one of the biggest things that we were looking for. And while I will say that we are the year and a half in, and we have not done the audit the way that I asked for it to be done and wanted it to be done, it's of our own volition. And that is because we're verifying that our inventory is absolutely correct. My staff has been working on that pretty diligently. in the time that they have to verify that all of our room inventories are right. We know that our staff inventories are right, but our room inventories are right. And then once we get that done, and I believe by the end of this summer, we'll have that done, our plan is then each year to do a self-audit. A lot of softwares will do an audit where I can just walk in and do it and a technician can do it. But what I'm interested in doing is decentralizing that process by way, and I know that your software has the ability to do that, is to send everyone what their room has and what they have, and for them to report back. So it decentralizes that process to take the burden off of all of the technicians. And so I know it has the process, the ability to do that, and we should be doing that next year.
That's fantastic. It's a really great feature. And for districts that are open to sharing that responsibility, it streamlines that process significantly just through a simple web interface. So I appreciate you speaking to that and kind of sharing that information with the group. On that note, it appears as though we are out of time. So I want to just touch real quickly. We've got quite the footprint here of customers that we have partnered with in the Midwest, including the largest customer that Hayes has in Chicago Public Schools. We work with districts as small as single building charter schools. Matter of fact, I just started working with a district in New Mexico, a single building high school, 300 kids, that's going to be using Tip of IT to manage assets. And so what's important is not the size of the district, it's the fact that this is K-12 and this is what we do so incredibly well. And we take a lot of pride in the way that we're able to help school districts with inventory management. This is a list of all of us that are actually kind of covering the Midwest together. And so if you've got questions or want information on Hayes, any of our products and services, if you want us to help you connect you with somebody like David or other folks in the area that are encountering similar challenges, we can help to bridge that gap and get you some resources that you can rely on to kind of bounce ideas off of and discuss best practices. So are there any other last questions, Skylar, before we sign off here?
I don't see any in the chat, but if anyone wants to take themselves off mute, we've got a little bit of time real quick.
Okay. Open that up for a second. All right, sounds like we're going to be good. Well, Skylar, I want to thank you for your help in the chat today. Appreciate it very much, sir.
Absolutely.
David,
thanks, Dave.
And David, thank you very much for joining us and all the insight you were able to share with the group. Invaluable, really appreciate it, and appreciate you working with us. So thank you, everybody. Take care and stay safe.
Appreciate it. Thank you.